What up, YouTube? Knowledge is self-determination. So I'm gonna have a discussion about the Brics Union. Is it Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia, I believe. Now, the Brics Union is looking to team up, partner up with different African countries and give them support and aid and military training, and I believe in some cases actual military weaponry and stuff like that. And all of that is fine and dandy. But here's the thing that I want to run down with you guys. How is that different from any other European country that has colonized Africa? Russia's claim to fame when dealing with Africa is that they've never colonized Africa. But if they're doing business with Africa now, this is them colonizing Africa. Why do I say colonizing Africa? Because what exactly is Africa, the Africans in Africa, what exactly are they benefiting from with this union with Brics? Are we gonna have more puppet leaders in positions of power, getting all the money, the wealth, resources handed to them, while they sparsely distribute, or not even distribute their wealth amongst the people? How are these business transactions, these business acquisitions, actually going to benefit the people of Africa? Not just the governments, not just the leaders, but the actual people. Because what we've seen in Africa is that the leaders are so corrupt. They are so determined to keep their people underneath them while they maintain positions of power and wealth, that the resources are not divided evenly among the people. And this is baffling to me. And the African people seem to cheer the recolonization of Africa on with thunderous applause. I believe that part of the issue is the fact that Africans, for one, don't see themselves as black. They don't see themselves as one unit. They look at themselves as they're different tribes. You know, in Kenya, what was it like? 35, 45 different tribes in Kenya. All these different tribes, and they identify with their tribes. Oh, I'm not black, I'm Kenyan. And then beyond being Kenyan, I belong to this tribe, or I belong to that tribe. And when they look at us, they don't look at us as being fellow black people or fellow people of African descent. They look at us as a separate tribe that they need to compete with. But for some reason, they don't see themselves needing to compete with the people who constantly exploit them. They see themselves needing to be their friends and needing their help and their aid, while these people rape the resources in the land and the people and continuously take from Africa. This is the most backwards position that I've ever seen. See, we look at white supremacy and other races who are basically honorary white supremacists. We look at these individuals differently than the Africans do. We don't look at them as saviors because we see ourselves as our own saviors. So we don't look at them in high regard the same way Africans do. When we look at Africa, we start thinking Pan-Africanism. They don't look at that. They look at it as, oh, we are a separate tribe, so we're in competition with you. But they don't ever seem to be in competition with these other races who are in fact in competition with them. So, with all these coups that are happening, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and other places, and in all these other places, are we just replacing? Because are we just replacing one puppet leader with another to just be led by a different puppet master? Or all these people truly liberating themselves? I really have to ask that question because I am very curious. And from what we can see, like for instance, the Chinese come over into Africa. You know, they plunder and rape the resources, but they'll build a highway. How does that benefit the people building the highway? How does that give back to Africa because you build a highway, which you built the highway because it's useful to you? They come over and buy airports and seaports and things like that. How does that benefit the Africans when you own? I think the Chinese just bought an entire forest. How does that work? What exactly are you supposed to be doing for the people of Africa when you're selling off huge plots of land and real estate that will benefit the people you're selling it to, and it will not continue to benefit the people of the land? The people remain desperate. They remain poor and famished. They are living beneath the poverty line. But the leaders seem to be doing quite well. This is bass backwards as far as I'm concerned. This is ridiculous. But let's take a look at these different countries that are a part of Brics. Now, there are 6 more countries that have joined the Brics Union. But let's focus on the ones that I know about so far. Brazil. Brazil is the largest African colony outside of Africa. And they have a color caste system that is completely twisted. Because the majority of the people in Brazil look like you and me. These are dark-skinned black people. But yet, because of the color caste system that has been implemented, the people who are lighter skinned or fair skinned are the ones who actually hold the reins of power. They control Brazil. And let's not forget, these light-skinned, white-skinned, white supremacists, adjacent people look down on dark-skinned people because they identify more with Europeans than they do with their African heritage. Because 9 times out of 10, they can link their lineage to some European that raped their great-great-grandmama some time ago. Pathetic. Russia. Although Russia has not colonized Africa, they do not have a history of colonizing Africa. Not colonizing Africa does not mean you do not have a history of white supremacy. Because as far as I know, from what I've studied and researched, in just about in every European country and Caucasian ran country, right-wing ideology is on the rise. Nazism is on the rise. Understand, these people worship Hitler. They try to put in your mind that you should demonize Hitler, but they worship Hitler. They worship what Hitler did. They worship that. Understand, their criminal element, their criminal class are their heroes, like the founding fathers of America. These people are criminals, but they worship and idolize these people. They don't have true heroes in their culture, which is why most of the heroes that you see white society talking about are fantasy, science fiction heroes. Their true heroes are the scum of the earth. But yes, Brazil does not acknowledge Africa, and they are not friends with black people. Russia, same thing. A Russian can go to a black country and live a peaceful life. You try going to Russia and live in Russia the way they can live in Jamaica or America or any country in Africa, and watch how there is a stark contrast in how they are treated, the black people that is. India. We know that the Hindu religion is a very, very racist doctrine. What do I mean by that? When it comes to the Negritos, the dark-skinned, pure African descent people that live in India, they are the scum of the earth to Indians, to East Indians. They are the scum of the earth. They are people who are seen as less, that they're seen as subhuman, and they are treated as such. India. These are people who have embraced white supremacist ideology to its fullest. Their color caste system is one of the most disgusting that I've seen. China. China is world renowned for their racism towards black people. The blackface stuff that they do, the making fun of black people, how black men have been murdered by Chinese citizens for being with Chinese women. Think about that for a second. Brothers have been murdered because they were in China dealing with a Chinese woman. And we saw how they treated the Africans during the COVID pandemic. Africans were getting kicked out of their places of abode. They weren't being allowed to go into markets and purchase food or restaurants to eat. They were treated like scum. Treated like scum. So China is not a friend to black people or Africans. They are not a friend. They are not friends to the African diaspora. Not by any stretch of the imagination. South Africa, a place where the Boers, people of Dutch lineage, who are 10% or maybe less than the actual African population, but they control 90% of the wealth in the economy. Therefore, they control South Africa. We know for a fact that these people are white supremacists. They have actual towns in South Africa, on the African continent, where black people are not allowed to be. That is pure insanity to me. It's pure insanity. Saudi Arabia, the Arabs. Arab people are currently, right now, Arabs are currently, right now, and look, if you don't like what I'm saying, calling you Arabs, what you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? You're selling our people into fucking slavery. North Libya is literally an open slave trade market. You're going into African countries and basically straight yanking people up and selling the women and children and men into slavery. So if you don't like me calling you an Arab, go fuck yourself. I don't care. What are you gonna do? We know this for a fact. So Brics is currently, of the 5-6 nations that I've just named, they are nations that are not friendly to black people, who in fact uphold white supremacist ideology. So before we start praising Brics for devaluing the American dollar, before we start praising Brics for coming into Africa and giving them resources or whatever, a place that has the majority of the world's resources already, you're just giving them money for the resources. Before we start praising these assholes, let's really take a look into who these nations are and what they've been to black people throughout history. I don't give a fuck the fact that Russia has never colonized Africa. They're colonizing it now. You go to Russia and try to live as a black man and work and, go about your daily life and see if you are not harassed and possibly even murdered just for being black in Russia. Go try it. Go try it. Because Nazi sentiments live on in Russia, just like in all these other countries. And that's really what I wanted to say. That's really what I wanted to get out there. We have to stop being so ignorant to the facts. We got to stop being fucking chumps when it comes to this. We really need to take a look at the bigger picture. Okay? People coming into Africa and offering the African leaders money is not the same thing as them helping to liberate Africa from non-African rule, dictatorship, colonization, whatever you want to call it. It is not the same thing. It is not the same thing. Because these African nations aren't kicking every non-African out and saying, you know what? All the Africans within the diaspora, we want you to come back home and help us make Africa great again. They're not doing that. They're inviting anybody but the diaspora back to Africa. And for all of you people who have your back to Africa plans, listen, I'm not knocking it. I don't even knock the train of thought that has you wanting to leave America. I'm not even knocking that at all. But what I am saying is this. You have an idea of what Pan-Africanism is. They're not thinking about Pan-Africanism. They're not thinking the same way you're thinking. When you come there, they look at you as an other, because even though you're black, you're of a different tribe. And the tribalism is deep in Africa. Apparently, Dr. Umar said that if Africa is not respected, then black people won't be respected. I believe that's complete and utter bullshit, because they look at us and treat us foundational Black Americans completely different than they treat those Africans. They know they can go over to Africa and offer up those leaders shiny rocks and shit and get whatever they want. They know they can't do that to us. So I think that's bullshit because we have a different amount of respect. They treat us differently. We have a different level of respect in the eyes of these white supremacists than Africans do. So I believe that is complete and utter bullshit. This is old Umar still trying to push that Pan-Africanism. That's him still trying to push that ideology forward. So I disagree with that. And I disagree with anybody who agrees with Umar with that. Because we get a different level of respect from these people. They move differently around us. They treat us differently. They do things differently with us than they do with other Africans throughout the diaspora. So please don't be fooled with people with their silver tongue and their fancy words and their rhetoric. Because it's all bullshit. The proof is in the pudding. You don't need me. You don't need me to combat Umar with any of this. You can look at the world and see that it's different, that they treat us differently. They move differently with us than they do with other Black people throughout the diaspora. So that's nonsense. That's nonsense. Africa will get respect when Africa starts treating itself more respectable. That has nothing to do with all Africans throughout the diaspora. It has nothing to do with it.